All right, let's talk about something that's baked right into the DNA of America. It's this constant push and pull, this battle between two huge ideas: the freedom we all cherish and the safety we all demand. And let me ask you this: how much of your own freedom would you be willing to trade for safety? Because, this isn't some newfangled question for the 21st century. It's the exact high stakes problem the American founders were wrestling with when they decided to break away from a king and build a whole new nation from the ground up. Yeah, this is what's known as a value tension. It's this constant balancing act, right? Between liberty on one hand and security on the other. And the founders, they got it. They understood this painful truth that to have any government at all, you've got to give up some of your freedom. The big, all-important question for them was, what do we get in return? So, to really get their answer, we've got to go back. We have to look at one of the most explosive, game-changing documents in American history. It was written by a guy who pretty much framed this entire debate for a whole generation, a man named Thomas Paine. And this is it, Common Sense. When this thing came out in January of 1776, wow, it was an absolute sensation. I mean, we're talking about selling the equivalent of millions of copies today. It was everywhere, read aloud in taverns, in people's homes, even to soldiers in the field. It basically took all those frustrations the colonists were feeling and just crystallized them into this incredibly clear, powerful argument for breaking away. And right here, Paine drops an absolute bombshell. He says government isn't some noble calling. Nope, he calls it an evil. A necessary evil, sure, but still an evil. I mean, think about how radical that is. Why on earth would anyone agree to something they thought was evil? Well, Paine had a pretty clear answer for that. Okay, so for Paine, society and government are like polar opposites. Society, that's the good stuff. It's what happens when we all come together on our own to help each other out, to build things. It's a positive force. Government, on the other hand, is the negative force. It's the punisher. It only exists in his view because people aren't perfect angels. It's there to keep our wickedness in check. And this right here is the core of the deal. The only reason, according to Paine, that you should ever give up even a tiny piece of your natural liberty, the only reason to accept this necessary evil is for one thing: security. That's it. The protection of your life, your stuff, and all your other freedoms. That is the bargain, plain and simple. All right, so if security is the one and only job of government, the American colonists had a huge problem. Because when they took Paine's test and applied it to their own ruler, the King of England, well, they found he wasn't just failing to provide security, they argued he was actively destroying it. And see, Paine didn't think the king's actions were just a mistake or a bad day at the office. No, he saw it as a feature, not a bug, of the whole system. To him, monarchy was basically a diseased form of government. Why? Because its whole point is to grab more and more power for itself, not to keep the people safe. Its only goal is to serve the crown. And you can see this exact argument pop up just a few months later in the Declaration of Independence. I mean, look at the list of complaints. The king refused to pass necessary laws, he shut down their elected assemblies, he messed with the justice system. What he was doing, in their eyes, was systematically tearing down their ability to keep themselves safe. Paine also went after the whole idea of someone being born to rule. Hereditary power. He was like, why? Why should power just be inherited? It made no sense to him. It was a total lottery. You could end up with a fool, a total villain, or just someone who's completely clueless in charge of millions of people. The most likely outcome there isn't security, it's oppression. And the Declaration of Independence? Man, it brought the receipts, and they were brutal. The colonists laid it all out. Far from making them secure, the king was making them profoundly insecure. He had an occupying army there, in peacetime. He was attacking their ships and burning their towns. He was literally hiring foreign mercenaries to wage war on his own people. The government had completely broken its end of the bargain. It was now the cause of their suffering, not the cure. So, okay, the old model of government is totally broken. What's the alternative? And this brings us to the really revolutionary part of the Declaration. This is where they stop just listing their problems with the king and actually propose a radical new solution. This sentence right here, it's honestly one of the most important ever written in the English language. It just completely flips the old model of government on its head. It says the entire point of government, its only reason to exist, is to secure the rights of the people. And where does it get its power? Not from God, not from a bloodline. It comes from the people. From us. So the Declaration basically lays out the super clear blueprint. Step 1, people have rights you just can't take away. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Step 2, governments are created for one reason: to protect, to secure those rights. Step 3, that government's power only comes from the consent of the governed. And step 4, and this is a big one, if that government fails, the people have the right to change it or get rid of it and start a new one to guarantee their safety and happiness. It's an entire theory of government, right there, in a nutshell. So, where does all this leave us? Well, this debate, even though it's 250 years old, it's not just some dusty old history lesson. It's a framework that still challenges us every single day. When you boil it all down, the founders' answer to this whole liberty versus security problem was actually pretty profound. They decided that they aren't really opposing forces at all. In fact, they believed that real, lasting security could only be built on a foundation of protected liberty. In other words, the only government you can truly trust to keep you safe is one that respects your freedom in the first place. And that brings us full circle, right back to that question from the beginning. The founders drew their line in the sand, based on the world they lived in, based on the threats of a king in a faraway empire. But our world is different. We face different threats. So the big, enduring question they left for every generation of Americans, including us, is this: how do we balance these two values? Where do we draw the line between liberty and security today?